Hello, storyteller, storytelling Ron. I got maybe a couple of videos to do today, but this is so I'm gonna do this one on this philosophical thinkers here. And the reason I especially come across like Douglas Murray is their fight against the woke and the Marxist and the left and all that. And so I'm a Christian, right? This person, Douglas Murray, is gay. And I'm gonna probably do some videos on criticizing gays are some homosexuals, LGBTQ. You're sinners. You're going to hell. Ah! Right? You know. But Jesus said, love the enemy. So I can treat people who are not believers, thusly, they're going to hell. That's kind of the Christian belief. I can treat them with dignity, with respect, learn from them, talk to them, hear their ideas, try to, evangelize to them. But if they say no, do I punch them in the face or slit their throats? No. Right? Jesus said, love your enemies. So if they say no, I say, well, do you watch football? Or do you play role-playing games? Get it? So loving the enemy is such a freedom by Jesus. Jesus is giving you a freedom. He's giving you freedom. Instead of having me pulling out a rocket launcher and shooting Douglas Murray or Tom Holland or anyone else, I can just say, hey, okay, you don't believe in Jesus and you're not going to be saved or you're not part of the chosen. What else? What else is going on with your life? How are you doing? See, that's the freedom of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ gives us freedom to not hate, freedom to not wallow in anger, and hatred and killing and jihad or whatever, or gulags. So I really, pray thoughts and prayers. It's weird. I guess my prayers are kind of thoughtiness. That Douglas Murray will see the truth that God wants him to be a husband and a father committed to his wife with children. That's what God really wants for Douglas Murray and Tom Holland. I think Tom Holland. They're getting kind of older now. I don't know. But anyway, okay. So this video is about these guys here. Here's Tom Holland. I'm reading his book, Communion, Off and On. I've read it. It's a big book, and about him kind of admonishing. Is that right? No. Kind of accepting that Christianity has definitely changed the world for good. He's still an agnostic, though. And some of the things he says in his book are a little like, and so here's one. And they're talking with the Hoover Institute. Dang it. Sorry, still got my little bit dry left of my cough. Talking to the guy at Hoover Institute who does these videos, this guy over here. And I enjoy these conversations. And then Stephen Meyer here, who does Signature in the Cell, he was an atheist scientist, and he started to do just amazing work on how incredibly complicated a cell is, the beginning of life, that he only recently, this guy is like, what, there's a God, he believes in Jesus. I think so. I don't know his Christian faith exactly, but I know he's a believer. And it had to do with just his inevitability of logic and reasoning of seeing how complicated a cell is, how many things in it, like a little city. It's like a little sci-fi city in there with little proteins running around doing things. So anyway, Douglas Murray, gay dude, but he's really been a good fight for conservatism, libertarianism, whatever. And Tom Holland, I really enjoy his stuff. And one thing I saw, he was on a video being interviewed by a Christian Reform guy, I think. And then the guy asked, why don't you believe in Christ or whatever? And he said, I just, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. He said, I just love dinosaurs. And I really, as a kid. And so, he has a hard time believing in Christ because he knows that dinosaurs don't fit in with it. I'm like, dude, missing out. You're missing out, man. Dude, dinosaurs are dragons and they're in my game, man, as a Christian. And you get to fight them. Anyway, so darn it. Cut it out, whatever. Okay. I want to go through this video because they have a really wonderful conversation. I'm listening to them as I'm walking my dog and stuff, and some things that kind of made me angry as I get about their claims. So let's start with Doug claims at the 18-minute mark that in the 16th century, everyone, and this is something typical of atheism and even Christians are like, that religion, he says religion, but it's kind of implies Christianity, although Islam is the true force of this wars and stuff, but brought war, turmoil into society in Europe, right? 16th century was horrible or whatever. I'm like, because I'm reading like personal accounts of stuff and firsthand accounts and in the Dark Ages, 6th, 7th century, and there's a few bits of war in there, but the vast majority of it is just peaceful stuff. Because you and I mean, think about it. If someone looking back at today would a historian and readers would study the wars. That's kind of how we study history. We study the wars, so we think, oh my God, 21st century was horrible. But yet you and I are living our lives on YouTube and air conditioning and everything. And, you know, they're not going to talk about our history. They're just going to talk about like the conflict in the Middle East or the Iraq War or the Afghanistan War or 9/11. That's the kind of history they're going to bring up. So back in this, you know, we look back at the medieval history and all, and we think, oh, it's all a bunch of wars. You know, but think about it. I mean, it was an incredible time of expansion. So I just want to go over some stuff here. First off, Charlemagne is in 8th century, something like that. That's the beginning of constitutions. When French king, the church was being built at that time and formulating, and, you know, only a few hundred years old or whatever. They started constitutions that affected the king as well as the people. So a pure tyrant was not was being dismantled, you know, slowly over hundreds of years. Then that's how history works. But the beginning of these constitutional things was happening through Christianity. The Gutenberg Bible is one thing I want to note, is in 1430, and it's Bible to the masses. In other words, the Christian was the one that brought about the printing press, which brought about the opportunity now for people to get books and information. The expansion of information, that was done by Christians. The entire reason the Christians desperately figured out this way to, you know, create this printing press to quickly make something was because they wanted to get the Bible out to the people. The Bible was considered a source of power. So Christians wanted to get power to the people. And, you know, the Christianity is the whole point of Christianity is the rights of individuals, and that the king was limited by the 10 Commandments and by a written word. Like, the king just could not walk all over people. That's the concept of Christianity and, you know, the Bible and how it's been built. And so many people think that the Bible is about manipulating people. The Bible attacks power, actually. It attacks kings and priests. In the Bible, criticizes all the kings and priests and how they don't follow the 10 Commandments. You know, in Israel, if the leaders of Israel would follow the 10 Commandments, they would then have a better society. But the whole criticism of then was that the kings and the priests and the people wouldn't follow the 10 Commandments. So all the people would not follow these 10 Commandments, and thusly they began sacrificing their children. That was the main source of the outwardly depiction of the society that was falling apart, was their perversion and their sacrifice of babies, of humans, and their sexual perversity. Gee, I wonder if that's happening today. Probably not, huh? We've advanced so much. Okay, 16th century. So he brings up the 16th century as being a horrible time. Douglas does. Well, think about what some of the major, I know I just tried to look up some of the major ones I can remember. Magellan global expeditions. Imagine, you know, we're in this horrible 6th century primitive, or, you know, it's not primitive, but whatever. But it's like, we began making these amazing ships, these galleons, and traveling across the world. That's incredible. I mean, a society that could imagine the amount of industry you need to make a ship that could go, you know, all the ropes, all the little pistons and metal, or pistons, but all the little iron things they got on there, all the little hooks, and, you know, you got to imagine it. Like, I remember the guy talking about capitalism, how he just showed you a pencil, and how that pencil looks so simple, but yet it requires hundreds of people to make, you know, factories and the metal and the mining and getting and the graphite and the wood and the, you know, the paint and the ink for the pencil color and all that. Like, that was like hundreds of different people, different organizations bringing materials together to make you a little pencil. So imagine a ship requires an entire nation of different industries to bring together these ships. And these were ships that were going across the world. So global expansion was happening in the 16th century. That's an amazing thing. Colonialism and expansion of civilization, Christian and Western ideas. I absolutely Be proud of colonialism. Someone says you're a colonialist, say, yes, I love that we spread civilization across the world, blah, blah, blah. So we need to stop being ashamed of Inquisition, Crusades, witch trials, colonialism. Read a little history and you find out, don't read today's history written by today's, go back and look for firsthand accounts and just blurbs and stuff. And it already breaks down their arguments, The Protestant Reformation was an incredible thing. That was basically the release of the Bible too, along with Gutenberg, the information to the people, and broke up the church. In the Catholic Church, it broke up their power and stranglehold on everybody or on the Bible, so that the Bible can now go out to people. And I remember John Calvin, I don't know if it was Calvin or whoever, but I remember reading how this was the first sermon, sort of in a sense, or at least in that century or whatever, where the pastor got up and everyone was kind of excited or weirded out that he, instead of rituals like the church did, he just started lecturing on the Bible, like starting from Genesis, or whatever it was. I think he started from Matthew or whatever, but each sermon would be going through that and explaining it, and the people would have questions, and it was very interactive. And it was like Bible study. It was like a sermon and then a Bible study. So the people were actually learning to understand the Bible. And this is one church in one town in Europe, like kind of starting the birth of the Protestants and the Reformation and all that. And so then that kind of started spreading, but obviously slowly, it takes hundreds of years. So to me, Christianity really didn't take off or get really, the Catholic Church created the foundation for it, spreading it and creating the civilization for it for sure. And then because of that settling of that, then the Protestants were able to come in and open it up even more. It's kind of like these levels. Like I you might not disagree with this, but I feel like Catholicism is sort of like elementary school of Christianity. Then middle school is Protestants, and then high school is like apologia, and you know what I mean? Like you get more like advanced stuff. Anyway, that's kind of how I feel about it. Scientific revolution was in the 16th century. It started happening. The fall of Aztecs to the conquistadors. That's a huge one. The Aztecs were brutal human sacrificers. And for them to fall to the conquistadors, along with smaller tribes that joined the conquistadors to fight the Aztecs. And of course, that would be one of Douglas Murray's, religion brings violence. Well, plenty of violence before the conquistadors got to Mazatlan or whatever in Mexico City. Quite a bit, and I'm being like truckling here on Douglas, but for him to say that religion brings war, well, there was plenty of war and violence before Christianity came along. Plenty. But they were fighting for land and territory and human sacrifice. Christians were fighting for something a little different. A little different. Christians were fighting for human dignity, human rights, the individual to do things, a constitution that gave every human rights against a king or a tyrant. That's what Christianity was fighting for. What the heck, man? The conquistadors were fighting for conquering. No, they were fighting to stop, the Aztecs, the human sacrifice. They saw how evil everything was there. How firsthand account. It was on YouTube. The guy was reads off the firsthand accounts that they were doing. The conquistadors were I have a book on it. I haven't read it yet. I've started reading it. Very brutal Aztecs, but the conquistadors were befriending the Aztec dude. I forgot his name. Whatever his name. They actually were friends with him before they conquered him, and they actually had him and they had dinner with him, and they knew that there was 200 different dishes on the banquet, and they knew some of them were human children. That's what they were dealing with. And they tried to figure it out and try to avoid those dishes. That's all they could do at that point, right? They can't just start attacking. So their conquering of this place they knew they had to conquer them to stop these human sacrifices and this cannibalism, which was commonplace for them Aztecs. No big deal. For pagans, what's wrong with eating children? Nothing. They could make up their gods that said eat your children. So that's what the conquistadors were witnessing. And so for us to, shame that is ridiculous. And I'm trying to get you guys to realize that. Okay, that's why you guys gotta, just for the fun of it, man, look at instead of reading sci-fi or RP or focusing on a bunch of RPG books or whatever that I love to, look for history, man, it's history, especially Catholic history, and Protestant history. Man, it is just crazy what's been more crazy than fiction. Okay, beginning of Whitey's doing slave trade. All right, this is a big one concerning the 16th century horrors that he's talking about, and this is something I just realized as I was typing this out. When Whitey's began doing, colonialists and Whitey's began their slave trades around 1600. But guess what? It ends around 1800. It ends within 200 years. When Whitey, Christian, and I mean like Christendom, when Christians began doing slavery, it didn't last that long. 200 years, 300 years maybe. Think about this though. Africa and Arabs were doing slavery since the beginning of time. And it did not stop or change. And it didn't stop until the Whiteys came along. It didn't stop until the African squadron, the Royal African Squadron by the Royal Navy, the British. I'm pointing at you because I'm mad or truculent or whatever. See, so Whitey started doing, whatever. The 16th century, 17th century. By the 18th century, 1800s, so 19th century, but starting the 1700s, but really 1800s, whatever. They started fighting against slavery. They started ending the slave trade, and then of course America had a huge war against slavery. So whites, Christendom, kind of got bamboozled and fooled by this whole slavery thing for a while, and then started to realize how horrifying it was. And it takes hundreds of years for the cultures to figure stuff out. It just takes that long, it's because you get sort of deluded by it and delusioned by it and all that, and then it takes a while. Just like it does with anything, it just takes a while. Okay, because the information is slow and the concepts. Anyway, so that was, lesson 2, or I would say probably less than 3 years if I really want to try to cover it all. But Whitey's changed and they ended it. They fought against it to end it. And whites died to end slavery of Africans. And then slavery, actually the Barbary War is up here. You don't see it on this thing. The Barbary Coast Pirate War was also another ending of slavery. The Muslims who raided all of Europe. That was a horror. I read an account on that, or on YouTube as one, and I've read it in my books. The Crusades against the Muslims. The Muslim slave raids in Europe were freaking horrifying, and they raided for children, and especially for girls, for harems. Imagine your daughter being kidnapped, even your wife being taken and then separated and then slaves. I heard an account. It was just the most incredibly depressing thing. I mean, it was the man, when he talked about it, he had got freed, but he had to leave his son behind. His son said that they may have my body, but they don't have my soul, because he was as a boy, he was saying he was still going to believe in Jesus. That was the last thing he heard from his son. And his wife, he saw, the last he saw her was she was a slave at a house, and he only had a moment to say goodbye to her, and that was it. And he had to leave. It was just the horrifying. I mean, and it's happening today. It's happening today because we don't have a Christian church strong faith in our Western culture now. And so the pagans who run everything don't care, and human trafficking is exploding now in Africa in modern day, in Middle East, and and China's doing it too. They're forcing people into slave labor into these places. They're luring them with jobs and then imprisoning them. And we have nothing. We're not fighting it. So it's happening again now, and there's not enough Christians to actually confront it anymore in modern day society. We're not confronting it. There's no MAGAs. I would like to say that MAGAs have a bunch of Christians, or at least Christians and cultural, that would fight it, but we don't have that in our country with a stolen election. We don't have that. So yeah, I'm gonna snipe that in there. Okay, so what else? So I'm really criticizing Douglas here. He's saying religion brings wars. BS. There's already war. That's the constant. And I love war, by the way. Don't be ashamed of war. When an atheist, whatever, calls you a warmonger, say, yes, I believe in war. War is a declaration that we're going to fight evil. Atheists don't fight evil. They succumb to it. They capitulate to it. They genocide, terrorism, slavery, or they do it. But they don't ever do war. I mean, they don't. Atheists don't do war. They, unless they're, faced up against someone who's saying, let's go to war. But they don't actually do war themselves. They just attack. They just capitulate and surrender to the dictator. They don't actually do war. Christians are the ones that do war. We declare it. Okay, 17th, 18th, and I'm saying statistically speaking. Okay, 17th, 18th centuries, petition of rights. So this is something I just kind of came across. More constitutionalism. They're saying we have rights as human beings. We have dignity. That's a Christian thing. That does not happen in paganism at all. King James Bible, okay, which is big, and then there's other Bibles too. But it's just the expansion and the access of the Bible to the people. Capitalism, liberalism were taught. That's something that started happening there. Merchant class rose, right? So business, so you could own your own business and you could create stuff and sell it at a price you want to set. Of course, Democrats are not allowing that anymore. They're controlling everything. They're telling you how much you got to pay your workers, how much you got to. They're setting prices for you. So that's why we're sort of getting this. That's why every time a Democrat becomes president, our economy just bombs. Then they promise to offer you something through government. Okay, Renaissance, Age of Reason, those popped up now. That's wow. Why didn't those happen way before? No, because they didn't. Because they happened during the explosion of Christianity and knowledge and the Bible being in the churches. So the Barbary Coast, the Barbary Wars, the slave raids, man, it's horrifying. And those were going on since Muslims were started at 600 AD. And it finally ended around 18th, 19th century based on Christians in America, actually. I read this book on during the Thomas Jefferson times of the guy who led the war against the Barbary. It was a big book too. Somewhere. And it was a kind of a silly war. And actually, I feel like that movie about the one where he charges through the desert to end a thing, I feel like that was actually taken off of this. Well, kind of replicated, because that was kind of the same thing this guy did. He went through the desert to attack this place. But anyway, whatever. Pretty harrowing story, but ending that. Okay, desacralizing the world is something that Tom Holland was saying. How let me get to this at the end here. Let me go through one other thing. Tom, at the 40-minute mark of that video, let me go and pop this video here, which is called, Does God Exist? Conversation with Tom Holland, Steve Munwire, and Douglas Murray. He says and he wasn't being overly critical of Christianity in one sense, but he was, and I hit on it because everyone uses the Inquisition. If you are an atheist who critiques Inquisition, it's for Christian reasons. In other words, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I'm interpreting what he says, but it's the atheist is using a Christian foundation to then criticize the Inquisition, having an innocent person put to death by a state apparatus. He accepts there's more than this, but okay. So he's saying the criticism is that the Inquisition put innocent people to death by a state apparatus, right? The Inquisition was kind of run by the Spanish government. Okay, wrong, completely wrong. Yes, you're going to say, oh, he's a historian, he knows better. No, I've read up on it, and I've read another historian who completely disagrees with this. And so, I have every right to be. I'm on equal footing with Tom Holland and anyone. And my footing is I disagree with you completely. The Inquisition, by the very word, that very word, Inquisition, means inquire. So that very word means we're having an inquiry. We are having a court system. What other fairness can you have? And why is he claiming that having an innocent person? That right there is a dictatorship on Tom Holland's part to say, oh, this innocent person is being put to death by a state apparatus. Well, one, it's not a state apparatus. And two, why is this person innocent? There was a freaking terrorist war going on in Spain, the Reconquista of Spain by the Catholics because they knew how deceptive Islam is or was. The Moors were so deceptive and terrorists. They learned the hard way through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So the Inquisition is an absolute justified thing to have. And for him to say that innocent people were put to death is kind of annoying to me, because you should know better than that. This was an Inquisition. This was an inquiry. And the Inquisition was set up to stop the mob mentality of the people. And remember, the people were very pagan too. There was even though we had a Christianity and Catholicism throughout Europe, it was still like 80% pagan in the sense of their mentality, the way they thought. Because it's not like any of them that were reading the Bible and doing Bible study. They still had a pagan mentality in the sense of like mobs. So many of these Christians feared Islam to the point of forming mobs to kill Jews and Muslims who they thought were Jews and Muslims and not actual Christians. And so it was like street mob gangs. And so the church said, we got to stop that. And the Inquisition was actually set up to protect anyone being accused of a crime so that they would stop the mobs and have their own inquiry into these accusations on these people. Whether they were actual Catholics or whether they were Jews and Muslims in disguise. And the reason they weren't accepting Jews and Muslims anymore is because they found that they couldn't get along. Whenever there was a war or whatever, the Muslims would just betray the Catholics in the same city or whatever. And so the Catholics said, screw this. We can't get along with you. We can't trust you. And Islam is that way. Islam is allowed to lie and deceive you peacefully in front of your face so that they can wait for their Muslim warriors to get stronger to then attack you. And they can sabotage the city, open the gates or whatever. So that was the whole reason they said, we have to kick you out. And the Jews came with the Muslims. They were their advisors or their slaves or whatever. So they had to get rid of both of them. Or they had to either convert to Catholicism or leave. They gave them a choice, leave. And if they didn't leave, then obviously the church and the Christians in the town believed, well, you're being deceptive now, and we don't trust you, and we're going to kill you because you had your chance to leave, you didn't. You know what I mean? So the Inquisition was to stop the mob killings and to put it into a court so they could investigate. And the executions were like, I think 3,000 over 300 years. But think about this, there are 3,000, but then there was tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands who were either made innocent or actually converted at that point or whatever it was. There wasn't, they were executing people who they felt were dangerous to their city or their and were lying and were probably terrorists. Anyway. So the Inquisition is an absolute, I won't say proud, you should be proud of it, but you should never not be ashamed of it. And it definitely was an important part of our freedom here in the West. And we kind of need one today. And I mean Inquisition. I don't mean going mob mentality or going around killing people. We need one where we need to investigate. And that's what it is, investigating terrorism. That's what it is. That's why we're weak today. That's why we have all these, the Hamas, and all this stuff. People saying, "What do you think? What do you think ending colonialism is? It's killing white people." That the Inquisition is then, let's investigate these people and see if they're actual terrorists or not, and they're going to start killing us. So for him to kind of just do that kind of naive statement there, damaging statement and wrong statement. And it's also what I think that is making him like, I don't want to be a Christian because of the Inquisition. Okay. You're just condemning yourself through stupidity, through naivety, or through, not getting it. And again, there might be bad people in the Inquisition, like some people that are get a little gung ho, crazy, maybe murderous. I get it. No, sure. But the point of the Inquisition was to inquire. Okay, just because there are murderous people in a Christian society doesn't mean Christianity is bad. Christianity actually says don't murder innocent people. That's actually a rule. So when a Christian murders innocent people, that's not Christianity. That's freaking paganism or a liar, a deceiver. Okay, so this last bit here, which I don't even feel like talking about since I'm tired. But so they said, Tom Holland said, Christianity desacralizes the world. In other words, it makes gets rid of fairies and all that, all that stuff, and it's the source of modern I put down modern lameness. Like he was equating the modern atheism and Marxism to using Christian foundations, and I'm kind of like, I think what you're saying there is you're not criticizing Christianity. But it sounds like you are, in a sense. that the Marxists and the atheists have now glammed onto Christianity and utilized it, which is true, and I agree with that. But Marxism and atheism are, Christianity is not their source. They're just changing their language. Like today, an abortion is the modern atheist Marxist terminology for baby sacrifice. Abortion is just their modern, or of course, now it's called women's health care. Women's health care. So to me, that is not Christian. The source is not Christianity at all. They're just using modern terms to deceive, and they're using Christian terms to deceive. Whatever is the flavor of the day. Oh, we can't use sacrifice your baby anymore. Okay, let's use women's health care. We can't use, pro-choice anymore. We can't use abortion anymore. We can't use pro-choice. Okay, yeah, let's use women's health care. They're just deceivers. So whether they're using Christianity or some other terminologies, their philosophy is not rooted in Christianity or starting from Christianity. They're just glamming onto it to deceive. That's my take on that. And the last thing, fear of the Lord, dictators feel no one is watching. So they mentioned it in the video, how David Bernstein, or whatever his name is, he says that Pol Pot and all these dictators in the modern world that killed millions didn't feel anyone was watching. And that's the thing. Fear of the Lord and wisdom is you and I, when the lights are down and no one is looking, do I go on here and pop up porn and start masturbating? No, I don't, because I have the fear of the Lord in me. Do I, when no one is looking, do something deceptive and evil on the computer or just whatever when no one's around? No, I don't, because Jesus Christ is watching me. I want to, because I'm a freaking sinner, but every time I try to, there's Jesus staring at me. Damn it. So I don't. So I can't. I don't enjoy it anymore. I used to be addicted to porn. Not anymore. That's another video or whatever. I don't do it. So can't. I can't. I want to. Can't though. Holy Spirit kicks in and says, this sucks. It's an amazing magical spell that came over me when I became Christian. And I was shocked at it. It's a whole nother video. And I've, here are some other Christians that are same, we all have that secret. Yeah, we don't do that anymore. It's weird. Secret handshake, knowing that our hands are clean from our own genitalia. So the fear of the Lord makes us not want to do things when no one is looking. But for pagans, they can just create whatever gods they want, and those gods are stuck to the physical world, so they can get away with things. They can when no one is looking. When no one is looking, a pagan or an atheist can do things and get away with it, and then that grows in their hearts. And imagine a society like that, full of people, which is what we're having today, full of people who, when they close their bureaucratic doors and no one is looking, they can pull down their pants and jerk off to their porn on their work computer, and or deal with, and then have to deal with your issue and say, no, you don't get the rights to run your own business. Yeah, I'm being very bitter here, but what kind of society do you want? Do you want a society where bureaucrats can close their doors and do that? Or do you want a society where you have Christian men from a church who, when they close their doors in the office, still do the right thing, still do the good thing, still believe in doing the right thing in their work? So obviously the goal here, the goal and my advice or my learnedness now is that we have to continually remind each other, fellowshipping, sharpening iron by rebuilding the church. We have to build the church, get strong. I'm a loser, old guy. I want the church there to create young, strong men who will rise up and be men of virtue and change our society. But of course, we know what really happens in the end. Jesus returns to save us. But anyway, for now, what we are supposed to do is a church, and that's what the whole New Testament is about, building churches. And what does the church do? Builds men of virtue. And I say men specifically because I mean it. Women should not be doing it only because they can do it, but they shouldn't have to. We men should stand up, and the women should be having a good time supporting us like my wife does, constantly supporting me because I'm such a doofus, and she has too much time supporting me that she can't do it all that on her own or whatever. Love my wife. Anyway, that's a whole nother video. Okay, so that's it. Thanks for watching, listening, and my little truculent video here about this video and issue about Christianity and the world and the game of life. Roll holy dice.